Good evening. I'd like to reconvene the meeting of Community Unit School District 300 Board of Education on this Tuesday evening, December 10th, 2019. Dr. Scarpino, please call the roll.
Zettler.
Here.
Stevens.
Here.
Scarpino present. Miller.
Present.
McNicholas.
Present.
Lamarca.
Present.
Fiorentino.
Present.
You have a quorum, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay. Before I turn it over to Mr. Hyde, welcome everyone. We have a full crowd tonight. Please feel free to take pictures of your student or your honorees anywhere that you want. Just please do not block someone else from taking a picture of their person. Mr. Hyde.
Madam President, members of the board, members of the community and staff, thank you for being here this evening. At this time, it is my pleasure to introduce Ms. Nikki Berkey, principal from Lincoln Prairie Elementary School, who's here to join us this evening with her students to lead us in the pledge.
Thank you.
Good evening. It is my pleasure this evening to introduce you to the 1920 Lincoln Prairie Student Council. Mr. Alex Toulon is their sponsor, and these students are quite the leaders in our building. They were chosen by their peers through election, much like school board election. And so these students currently are working on a service project in which they are collecting donations from the building for our animal shelter. They've also been previously involved in collecting donations for the food pantry as well. So I'm super proud to introduce them to you. I'm going to read their names. They're going to do a polite little wave out to family and friends, and then we will start off with the pledge. So London Hecker, Ava Boberg, Anthony Jahulio, Jillian Helminski, Thomas Alori, Jane Alderson, Vinnie Corrado, Charlie Hoover, Emily Miller, Lauren Sandage, Anya Ahmad, Hassan Javed, Safa Karamula, Dasha Kozlova, Gabby Mitchell, and Mia Semkin. Now we are going to do the pledge. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Before you proceed, I would just like to say that all of the school board members and Mr. Hyde are going to kick in $10 apiece and split it between the two charities that you talked about. Would you please? Thank you.
Here. Here's a newlywed. You have that.
Thank you.
I don't have purse.
We're going to start gambling.
I know, right? Huh? Yeah.
We got business
It'd also
going.
be really nice if the audience passed the hat to wonderful charities that those kids are trying to raise money for.
Okay, moving on our agenda. We have the approval of the agenda. I have no modifications, so I will entertain a motion to approve the
So
agenda.
moved.
Second.
And Dr. Scarpino, please call the roll.
Scarpino, aye. Fiorentino. Lamarca. McNicholas. Miller.
Aye.
Stevens. Zettler.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. Moving on. Mr. Hyde.
Madam President, members of the board, members of the community and staff, please join me in a moment of silence for the passing, in recognition of the passing of a former D300 employee, Mr. James Perry. Mr. Perry passed away on Friday, November 22nd after prolonged illness. Mr. Perry's history with District 300 spanned 34 years of service. He worked at Oak Ridge School, Algonquin Middle School, and Jacobs High School, primarily spending the majority of his career as a special education teacher. He retired from District 300 on June 5th, 1995. Thank you.
Okay. At this time, we're going to have a public hearing, and the topic is e-learning. The purpose of this hearing is to receive public comment on the proposed e-learning program, which will permit students' instruction to be received electronically while students are not physically present in lieu of the district's scheduled emergency days. This program is allowed under Public Act 101-0012. I need a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, with that, I will ask Mr. Hyde to provide a brief overview of the proposed e-learning program. Mr. Hyde.
Yes, ma'am. As required under school code, the other TVs are all showing the presentation. As required under school code, we are required to host a public hearing in regards to e-learning or the use of e-learning to help address issues of course recovery or coursework recovery when we close campuses for an emergency day. If approved, the approval of e-learning is good for a period of 3 years, after which point it must be revisited. As you know, we successfully used e-learning last year. We continued over multiple days to take lessons learned and continue to refine and revise our process. However, moving forward for this year and the next 2 subsequent years, we leveraged the use of existing holidays to primarily replace any potential closure dates. That was based off historical data as far as when we typically saw school closure dates. So we again revisited our calendar. You approved the calendars already, but the calendar includes 1 e-learning day. The reason for an e-learning day during this school year is we do not have an additional day during the year outside of the Kane County Educator Day, which is the countywide professional development institute, which we host here for several other districts and working groups. So that is the 1 e-learning date that we would propose over the next 3 years. Again, it is the 5th day. As a reminder, we'd have to utilize 5 school closure dates to even consider use of e-learning. It is not the 1st day, nor is it 2, 3, or 4. It would only be utilized if we had to close schools for a total of 5 days, because that is a requirement that we have to make up the first 5 days that we lose due to school closure for inclement weather. Assignment release timelines. Our teachers would have their assignments in by mid-December. Some staff have asked for an extension to go through January 30th, and we are accommodating that because this date is not being used until until February. Students in grades 1 through 12 will get their assignments via Haiku. The reason we've asked staff to submit those assignments early on is, and again, unlike other districts, we do not launch e-learning the day of. We launch it addressing prior learning and or future learning opportunities. It's all pre-planned, preloaded, so that there's no issues with bandwidth, there's no issues with connectivity. And so we did ask for assignments to be submitted initially by mid-December, again with the extension for certain groups like interventionists and social workers who want to also make sure that they address their service minutes for our children. We've extended that through January 30th. That would allow our team on the technical side through Ms. Pasco, the DLCs, and others to ensure that all of the information is hosted and launched appropriately. Teachers will review their assignments with students, as we say there, at least 2 weeks prior to the date that it would be utilized on February 28th. Preschool and kindergarten would not receive their assignments via Haiku. We would replicate what we did previously through take-home assignments. The assignment outlines, as required, all assignments must mirror the 50 to 55 minutes of instructional activities per class. Electives and special staff would only assign work for those students that missed class on the actual closure date. Grading of assignments continues to be up to the teacher because, again, it's reflective of what's going on in the classroom at that time. So if the teacher feels that it is that would require grading, they're allowed to do that. If it was something that would go ungraded, such as practice assignments, pre-reading assignments, and those types of things, they would not have to grade those. Unlike previously, students would only be marked absent for any class that they failed to submit an assignment for. Previously, under the code, we had to mark them completely absent for a day if they did not make up all of their e-learning assignments. The flexibility now afforded to us allows us to address it period by period. Assignments must be provided accommodations, as you recall, for any students who have an IEP, a 504, or even for our dual language or English language learners. Assignments would be distributed, as I shared previously on the slide, 2 weeks prior. So by Friday, February 14th, they would all be listed on the student's main Haiku page, and teachers would review those with students within an appropriate timeline of that date. Assignments would be due by Friday, March 16th to count for either grades and or to be counted in the student's attendance. And that concludes my presentation for e-learning.
Okay, at this time, I will ask if there are any persons in the audience that would like to address the board on this. I did have one person sign up on the sheet, Angel Cuerva. Something different. Okay, then if it's okay with you, I'm going to move you from this list to the list under regular public participation. Okay, thank you. Okay, anyone else want to have any comments regarding e-learning? Any comments or questions from the board members? Okay, seeing no one moving to speak regarding this topic, I will ask the board for a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
And then Dr. Scarpino, please call the roll.
Stevens? McNicholas?
Aye.
Fiorentino?
Aye.
Lamarca?
Aye.
Miller?
Aye.
Scarpino? Aye. Zettler?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, thank you. At this time, we're moving on to item number 8.1, and I will again turn it over to Mr. Hyde.
Yes, ma'am. Madam President, it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Brett Bending from Hampshire High School, who is here to introduce and recognize his IHSA Fall Sports State qualifiers.
Thank you, Mr. Hyde. Members of the Board of Education, community members, friends, and family in the audience, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce Mr. Ryan Hollister, our head cross-country coach, as he describes the achievements of young Aiden Gonzalez here before you tonight. So, without further ado, Coach Hollister.
Good evening. I'm Coach Hollister, the head cross-country coach at Hampshire High School. With me is Coach Kurkowski, the assistant cross-country coach. We're here to honor Aiden Gonzalez. As a freshman last year, he won the Fresh Off Fox Valley Conference invite. As a sophomore this season, Aiden is someone who stepped up as a leader on our team. Aiden is a mentally tough athlete who buys into every aspect of our program. Some of his season highlights include, I'll ask you, there's a lot of them. He's really good. So hold your applause. Third place finish at Genoa Invite. 10th place finish at the Harlem Invite. He finished 51st out of 506 runners at the first to the finish invite in Peoria. Third place at the Matt Walter Invite. 10th place at the Lyle Invite. And Aiden earned the title of Fox Valley All-Conference by finishing 18th place at the Fox Valley Conference meet. He took 16th place at the most competitive regional in the state of Illinois, or the most competitive two-age regional in the state of Illinois, running his personal best of a 16:21 3-mile. For those of you without calculators, that is a 5:27-mile pace. He was 19th place at the most competitive 2A sectional. He was the fastest underclassman at the meet, and he was the only sophomore to individually qualify for state, also making him the youngest runner in our school's history to qualify for state as an individual, which is a great feeling because we get to walk around at the state meet, schools from Illinois, and we get to hear that wonderful phrase of people, they're bewildered and they ask, what's a whipper? And it's a fantastic feeling. At the state meet, Aiden finished 142nd out of the best 220 runners in the state. Aiden's high school career is off to a fantastic start. He's an upstanding young man who represents our program well and makes my job very easy. I look forward to talking about him for the next 2 years as he awkwardly stands here in front of you. So congratulations, Aiden.
Coach on. Good job. Nice presentation. Yeah, Coach. Thank you. A little procedure.
Miss Assistant Coach can come up this way too. Grab her. Don't forget about us. Thank you so much.
Arguably the best response Aiden could provide as to what's a whipper is you're going to have to catch me to find out. I thought of that. That was clever. That was good. That's my one for the year. Boom, boom. Shh. We are good. At this time, let's transition. It took me about a minute. Mr. Joe Benoit from Hampshire High School, or excuse me, from Jacobs High School, our athletic director. I apologize.
Thank you very much. Again, I'm very excited to be here. It's an honor to stand before you and introduce our fall state qualifiers. We have 5 this year from 3 different sports. Obviously 5 outstanding young ladies that you'll get to meet tonight. Most impressive about this group, obviously they get it done on the golf course, on the tennis court, and in the pool. But cumulatively, the 5 young ladies that you will meet tonight have an unweighted GPA near 3.8. So we're very proud of, obviously, all of their accomplishments, but they also get it done in the classroom, most importantly. First up, I'd like to welcome and introduce our head girls golf coach, Megan Placco.
Hello, I'm Megan Pleck, and I'm the girls golf coach at Jacobs High School. This season, Roz Leitner achieved something that not many before her has done. She qualified to make it to state through the toughest sectional in the state. Not only did she make it to state, but she also did an amazing job while down there. She shot an amazing 78 on the first day to make the cut for the second day. Many people don't know, but they cut the field from 144 golfers to 72 for day 2. She ended up finishing 32nd in the state. This made her the second highest Fox Valley golfer in the state. Congratulations, Roz, on a great season and a great high school career.
Next up, please welcome our girls swim coach, Emily Peterson.
Good evening. My name is Emily Peterson, and I'm the head coach of the Jacobs and Hampshire girls swim team. It is with great pleasure that I get to stand before you and introduce our 3-time returning state qualifier, Jenny Tokars. Jenny is a junior at Jacobs High School and a swimmer who brings an extreme amount of talent and dedication to our team. Jenny started off the season strong, breaking a pool record at Buffalo Grove High School, and she finished off the season even stronger. Jenny played a huge role in our second place finish at the varsity conference meet this season, finishing first in both of her individual events and first in one of her relay events. Jenny was also named the MVP of the varsity conference meet for the first time in her career. Some of Jenny's other accomplishments this season include dropping a total of 17 seconds throughout the season in her two events, the 200 and 500 freestyle. In order to qualify for state in swimming, there are time qualifying standards that you have to make only at the sectional meet, which can be very nerve-wracking. But Jenny did not let the nerves get to her. Instead, she passed them on to me. Even though I was nervous, Jenny was so determined to qualify in both of her events at sectionals for the first time since her freshman year, and she ended up achieving that goal effortlessly. Jenny ended up qualifying for both of her events, finishing fourth in the 200 free and the 500 free, where she also helped her 200 free relay and 400 free relay finish fifth place. At the state meet on November 22nd, Jenny finished 25th out of 47 swimmers in the 200 free and 20th out of 33 swimmers in the 500 free. And to top it all off, Jenny has made this year, she also was named the Northwest Herald Girls Swimmer of the Year, which is the first time in Jacobs history that a girl has been given this honor, and it couldn't have gone to a more deserving swimmer. With all of this, myself and the rest of the team are so proud of Jenny for all of her successes this season, and we are very hopeful for another state run next year. Congratulations, Jenny.
Congratulations. Great job, Coach.
And last but not least, I'd like to introduce our girls tennis coach, Coach John Betts.
Members of the board, community members, I want to first start off by thanking you all for taking time out of your meeting to recognize our outstanding accomplishments of our student athletes here. Congratulations to our other qualifiers. Tonight, we're fortunate to recognize three young women who put together an outstanding season to qualify for the state meet. First, all the way, stage left. I don't know. It was never in theater. Chloe, you can raise your hand maybe. Chloe put together an excellent season. Chloe's a freshman, was a conference champion at first singles, qualified for state, finishing as runner-up in our sectional, went 2-2 at the state tournament. What's most impressive about her performance, she missed the first half of the season with a broken leg, came back, played outstanding tennis while recovering from that, and we're extremely excited about the next 3 years that she has in front of her. To her left, no stage directions there. Isha Desai, who partnered with Lindsay Cunningham. Isha is a sophomore. As a freshman, she was the conference champion at second doubles. This year, she and Lindsay were conference champions at first doubles. They went on to finish third in our sectional to qualify for the state tournament, where they finished with a record of 2-2 at state. She, as I said, she's a sophomore coming back the next 2 years. Lindsay Cunningham, to her left, senior, has been up here once before. She qualified as a sophomore in singles. Lindsay has been an outstanding member of our program, one of the leaders of our team, and a large part of why we've been successful over the last 4 years. As a freshman, was a conference champion at third singles, helping our team clinch the tournament title. Like I said, as a sophomore, qualified for state for the first time, and this year went undefeated in conference, qualified for the state meet despite being sick at the time. We had quite a bug going around our team, but played through illness, competed well at the sectional, and then on to state. Her final win at the state tournament in 3 sets while battling illness. ended up being her 100th career varsity win, reaching a milestone for her and in our program. Lindsay and Isha were also named the Northwest Herald Athletes of the Year for tennis. I couldn't be more proud of these three young women and our program that they represent. Please join me in congratulating them not only for the successes they've had on the court, but their impact on the community. They're outstanding representatives for District 300, Jacobs High School, and I'm so fortunate to be associated with all three of them. So thank you very much.
Broken leg?
Thank you. Mr. Hyde.
Yes, ma'am. Tonight we have a very special recognition. As you know, we have the Blue Ribbon Society, we have our Educator Spotlight, but tonight we have to say thank you to a team that worked together and actually ultimately saved a child's life as a result. So tonight, both the Board of Education and I are extremely proud to present a very special award to 6 Dundee Crown High School staff members who worked together very recently to save a student's life. On November 17th, a Dundee Crown High School student collapsed while practicing with his team. Dundee Crown staff and coaches, including Steve Gertz, Lance Huber, Connor Lierke, did I pronounce that correctly? Well, it's not. So how do I pronounce it? Lierke? Connor Lierke, Jesse Martinez, Robert Sweeney, and Brenda Toshida all worked together to save a student's life. District 300 cannot properly express how proud we are of each of you for your heroic actions. At this time, I'd like to ask Mr. Steve Gertz to come to the podium and also invite the rest of the team to the front to be recognized formally.
Good evening, and thank you, Mr. Hyde and the Board of Education for having us tonight. Wednesday, November 17th seemed like a typical day at Dundee Crown. The school day had just ended, and I walked through the gyms to see how practices and basketball tryouts were going. Boys basketball players were jumping rope when the unthinkable occurred. A call came over the radio that a student was unresponsive in the main gym. At approximately 3:23 p.m., one of our basketball players collapsed on the ground. Within seconds, our coaches responded to the student. Coach Lance Huber, Bob Sweeney, Connor Lorkey, and athletic trainer Brenna Sheeta were instrumental in attending to our student, performing CPR and using the AED to shock him. Jesse Martinez was quick to notify the staff on the radio that help was needed. Our entire administrative team and security team were quick to the scene, assisting in calling 911, calling the parents, making sure the gym was clear, and assisting with the police and fire. Those 5 minutes seemed like hours. The student had a heartbeat and was breathing. The police and fire department responded shortly after this. They were very comforting and responsive to our students and our staff. The CPR training and the AED training that our district requires for all of our coaches saved a life. Our emergency plan that we hope never to use worked. I am proud to be here tonight to say that our staff saved the student's life. So tonight, again, we're here to recognize and congratulate Coach Lance Huber, Bob Sweeney, Connor Lorkey, and athletic trainer Brenna Sheeta, and maintenance extraordinaire Jesse Martinez. So congratulations, you guys.
The board has not seen these, but each member is receiving a crystal plaque from us to say thank you. Lance, yours is the model. Congratulations, sir. Good to know that my son will be in good hands in the very near future. Brenna, very apologetic for pronouncing your last name. I was so confident when I said it. Thank you. Remind me. Robert, there you go. I had it in my hand. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Outstanding job. Thank you, sir. And Mr. Gertz. Thank you, sir. Love the jacket. Love the jacket. So Mr. McGinn has requested if we could take a picture with our recipients. So if the board, would we like them to come up here, or would you like to go down with them? Your person has requested the board. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. So while the board returns to their seat, I have some additional good news to share on this point. We were in the cycle period to renew and refurbish and replace all of our defibrillators in our school buildings, and 50 new ones are being deployed. The advantage of the newer devices is not only their batteries are newer, ready to go, but they actually have better monitoring software. So anytime an AED actually triggers, and the beauty of those devices is they are largely foolproof. It actually reads for a heart rate and will only shock accordingly. The newer devices actually will track and monitor the data so that we can share that information with the local hospital so they can identify other issues or what may have triggered or other factors contributing to the cardiac arrest at the time. So we were very fortunate to have well-trained staff, have good equipment, and so thank you, board. And we were able to take advantage of a buyback process, so we were able to significantly reduce the purchase cost to replace all 50 AEDs across the school district.
But isn't it interesting that that came up shortly after this happened? That's cool.
In other good news, earlier tonight the board recognized Jacobs High School students Lindsay Cunningham and Isha Desai for being IHSA state qualifiers. District 300 would also like to recognize Lindsay and Isha on being named the 2019 Northwest Herald Girls Tennis Players of the Year. Playing as a doubles team, Lindsay and Isha won the 2019 Fox Valley Conference title and helped Jacobs win their first Fox Valley Conference regular season and tournament championships. Lindsay and Isha also qualified for state, where they finished with a record of 2-2. When asked about the partnership they developed, Lindsay Cunningham told the Northwest Herald, "Isha and I built a really close relationship. Previously, I was alone out there. Being able to have someone to support you and boost your confidence was really cool." Lindsay finished her Jacobs career with over 100 victories. Isha is a sophomore who hopes to continue her tennis success for the next 2 years. Congratulations, Lindsay Cunningham and Isha Desai.
Also earlier tonight, the board recognized Jacobs High School student Jenny Tokars for being an IHSA state qualifier. District 300 would also like to recognize Jenny on being named the 2019 Northwest Herald Girls Swimmer of the Year. During this season, Jenny made her third consecutive trip to state, qualifying for the 50-yard freestyle and the 200-yard freestyle. In addition, Jenny earned Most Valuable Swimmer honors along with 2 Huntley High School swimmers at the Fox Valley Conference Invitational. During this invitational, Jenny also earned individual titles in the 500-yard freestyle and the 200-yard freestyle. When asked about her favorite race to swim, Jenny told the Northwest Herald, the 200-yard freestyle, it's not a distance event, but it's not a sprint. You have to be more tactical with it. District 300 would like to congratulate Jenny Tokars on being named the 2019 Northwest Herald Girls Swimmer of the Year.
Hampshire High School and Jacobs High School recently hosted athletic signing days in celebration of students committing to participate in collegiate level athletics. District 300 would like to recognize the following students for their commitments. From Hampshire High School, Cheyenne Curry committed to play softball at Concordia University. Gavin Kriegel committed to play baseball at Eastern Illinois University. Gwen Malik committed to play softball at Bellarmine University. Haley Moore committed to play volleyball at Concordia University. From Jacobs High School, Jay Carrier committed to the wrestling team at Old Dominion University. Congratulations to each of these students on committing to participate in collegiate athletics.
Eastview Elementary School honored in Washington, D.C. Last month, Eastview Elementary School was formally recognized at a ceremony in Washington, celebrating their designation as a National Blue Ribbon School. Eastview Principal Jim Zerson, teacher Amy Morrison, board member Dr. David Scarpino, and Superintendent Fred Hyde were in attendance to commemorate Eastview's recognition. During the ceremony, the U.S. Department of Education presented Eastview with an honorary plaque and flag commemorating their achievement. Eastview Elementary is one of 362 schools nationally to be honored as a Blue Ribbon School and is one of just 10 public schools in Illinois to earn the National Blue Ribbon's Exemplary High Performing Schools designation. In the days following the ceremony in Washington, Eastview held a flag-raising ceremony to celebrate their achievement with students and staff. Congratulations once again to Eastview Elementary School.
Last month, the District 300 Math Department, led by Dr. Jackie Duginski, Director of Mathematics, hosted a workshop for fellow educators. The workshop offered 8 engaging sessions taught by our district's math instructional coaches. Sessions were designed to teach attendees how to implement proven math strategies in the classroom and covered a wide variety of topics, including creating a math workshop model to meet the needs of all learners, mastering fractions conceptually in elementary classrooms, and project-based learning for easy differentiation. The workshop was designed for educators who were seeking best practices to support student-centered mathematics. Tonight, Dr. Jackie Duginski is in attendance and would like to provide the board with a gift for their support of the math department. At this time, I invite her to the podium.
Thank you. As mentioned, we hosted our first math conference back on November 6th. The goal and the vision was a showcase. It was to showcase the inspiring mathematics happening in District 300 every day. We did have over 50 participants from 11 districts, some as far as south of Champaign, Illinois.
Wow.
Every person had really great feedback for us, so we're hoping to continue this kind of showcasing of District 300 academics in the future. Every participant did leave with a t-shirt, and we have left one for each of you this evening. Great. Thank you. Yep.
Thank you. And moving on, we have Superintendent's report. Mr. Hyde.
Madam President, members of the board, members of the community and staff, begin this superintendent's report with a summer school update and recommendations as we move forward. At this time, I'd like to ask Mr. Wetzel and Ms. Jonas to please join us at the podium should there be any subsequent questions or clarification that's required. As you know, we operate summer school for both credit recovery and for enrichment and or acceleration options for our students. At this time, we are making 3 recommendations to the board as we move forward with summer school. We're restructuring the calendar to operate through the first 6 weeks of summer rather than a prolonged or protracted calendar. We would be recommending the elimination of the honors level courses, and I will address each one of these recommendations in subsequent slides. And we're looking to expand our future course offerings to include both online and blended opportunities for our students. The summer school calendar being recommended, as the board has already approved subsequent years' school calendars, we felt that we should also provide parents with the information. Even though summer school always begins within the first week of June, we wanted to make sure that we provided this update. So for this summer, the 2020 summer, we would operate from June 1st through July 9th. In 2021, June 7th through July 15th, and 2022, June 6th through July 14th. Worthy of note is that should we have to, as you saw with the next 2 school years, not this current school year, should we have to add calendar days to the school year, we would still complete the school year before Memorial Day, which has always been our objective, but we would also be able to adhere to this calendar. This would not be affected. The time frame between the last day of school and the first day of summer school might shorten. However, these would be the dates moving forward. It does allow additional time for us to process grades, especially for juniors and seniors who may require some additional coursework and to supplement or finalize their college transcripts for application and or acceptance. We do need that timeline. It does affect our graduation rate when we report this information. So for example, if you're a senior and you're a half a credit short, if a senior completes that course within the specified summer school timeline, they would be eligible to count towards our overall graduation rate. It also would improve our recruitment efforts. We believe that by shortening, we're not shortening the summer school length, but by shortening the duration of summer school, many of our staff might find it enticing. And as you know, we've struggled with recruitment of staff for various positions for summer school because they also need a break and they also want their summers, and many of them are parents themselves. So we believe that by shortening this timeline, again, not the number of days for summer school, we might be able to recruit additional staff. And again, as you know, given the last 3 years, our pattern of infrastructure enhancements, asbestos abatement, roof repairs, it would provide Mr. Opels and his team with far more flexibility and time for them to complete summer projects and afford us the opportunity to get staff back into the buildings as quickly as possible to let them begin setting up for a subsequent school year. The elimination of the honors designation, at times this is going to be met with some concern. It does not eliminate the option for a student to take an honors level course during the traditional school year. It did not eliminate the option for them to pursue it in a blended environment, nor does it ultimately, within the next 2 or 3 years, if we can get to a point where we feel confident in an online course that we deliver to ensure its rigor, we would offer an honors course. However, at this time, the data does not support the rigor of honors designation courses during summer school. The grades, the passing rates are not replicable when we compare the annual year passing rates and grade levels to prior years and especially to summer school. We do struggle with hiring staff. We have a lot of highly skilled staff, but when it comes to this class in particular, we have struggled to find staff because more importantly, not only is it important that they have the appropriate certification for the content area, but that they have experience teaching an honors level course, and that has been our difficulty over the last 2 years in particular. The current honors level summer course offerings, we have historically offered 4 honors level social studies courses and 1 honors level math course. These are the courses that we offer. Summer course offerings, we did do an analysis to see what other districts are offering. This is not only as it relates to honors courses, we did also look to see who offered online courses and essentially what was their footprint. U46 offers credit recovery options for students to stay on target for graduation. Crystal Lake offers the U.S. History and Geometry as a summer elective option. Huntley offers a 300 level, which is the course level we would offer for a get-ahead blended and credit recovery courses in social studies for students in grades 10 through 12. We are arguably offering the same thing, except our recommendation would include grade 9 for students who want to create space within their schedule to allow them to take other electives or other coursework. They also offer credit recovery courses in math. St. Charles offers 2 classes, civics and American history, for students in grades 11 and 12. They also offer 3 online courses, econ, civics, and social studies, for students in grades 10 through 12, with a total enrollment capped at 100 students. So you can see in Geneva, 304 offers credit recovery options for students in grades 10 through 12. All of us offer the credit recovery options. I think it's important to note that while you see a reference to online learning, current school board policy allows for online. However, we will require additional time to get to that place in our school district. There's a lot of conversation that needs to take place, and there's a lot of things such as developing the priority standards and identifying those for summer school instruction and ensuring that our students have an appropriate timeline. The benefit, though, outside of a blended learning or a traditional face-to-face learning is an online course could be offered over an extended period of time that could cover the entire summer, allowing students and our staff far more flexibility. But again, I'm way ahead on this, and it's going to require a lot of conversation and dialogue with our staff and with our collective bargaining units. I know that I've briefly touched on this topic with Mr. Williamson. Again, here's some comparative data for how our students have performed. Historically, the board, you've seen this, compared the summer school passing rates as far as the students with A's with the rest of the school year. I also provided you with some other comparable data so that you could review and identify areas of concern. And again, our argument is we cannot continue we do not replicate the same or the appropriate level of rigor in a summer school environment because of the abbreviated timeline that we do in a traditional course. It's just simply not possible. It's not feasible at this time. So the recommended course changes for the 2020 summer school is that social studies department courses would be offered at the 300 level and capped at 3 sections per course. Obviously, we would review that, so if we had an increased demand, so long as we're able to adequately staff that, we might be able to add additional sections. We would offer the world history, the global economics, American government, U.S. history. Social studies might be offered in a blended model. Pending board approval and no concerns after this evening's presentation, we would begin messaging this to staff. Ms. Pasco has done an amazing job in helping us leverage our conversations with both blended and competency-based instruction. We would begin in earnest communicating this to staff to determine their level of interest. The math department courses we would offer again at the 300 level. That would be the geometry, that would be offered over both sessions. And web-based or Odyssey course options for enrichment, psychology, grades 10, 11, and 12, introduction to business, personal finance literacy, and personal and family living. Sir?
The asterisk that you have there, is that a concern for you?
I'd have to, yes. Yes.
That's a concern.
Yes, sir. For both. I can't answer that question because there's a lot of that goes into that question, and you're asking me to, arguably, I feel like I'm being put in a position to determine which one is responsible for the outcome.
I know that
Yeah.
there is it is not our district, but I know there's a local district not too far from here that would rather see them pass than get the grade they should appropriately get.
No, I think, again, the justification is the rigor is not appropriate. If you compare what we're trying to do in 6 short weeks, 24 days, is not comparable to an entire school year, and I don't think that we would get any disagreement from, I'm never going to, I hate putting Mr. Williamson on the spot, but I know that we've had some conversations, and I believe staff are concerned with offering honors courses during the summer, and Mr. Williamson, please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but.
That's correct.
That I'm wrong or that I'm accurate?
We definitely have concern with honors classes offered over the summer.
There you go. Okay. This slide is a duplication of the previous slide. Recommendations for expanding district online and blended learning options. As I discussed, online options we currently already provide through Compass Odyssey. It provides completed courses, self-paced. This is the area we will continue to have dialogue and grow. Assessments are scheduled, so essentially, even in an online setting, we would have predetermined assessment dates that students would report either to their school or even here to central office, where we could administer the midterm and or final exam for credit, for full credit. It's not something that we would release entirely into an online format because there's a lot of variables that cannot be controlled in that regard. Blended options, that is something we would look aggressively to implement this school year for this summer, would be provided through our teachers in Haiku. We already have this model during the traditional school day. It would require less staff presence. Essentially, staff would not feel that they have to be here 4 days a week. Even in a setting where a student might struggle, as we've had conversations, there are virtual options that our teachers could utilize to communicate with students who are showing any indication of that they're falling behind or that they're struggling through Skype and through other means. It would not necessarily always have to be a face-to-face interaction. Again, assessments would be scheduled and completed on site, not at home. And again, because of the lack of control of various variables that may influence or impact the students' outcomes, and require the presence at school for at least 2 of the 4 days at this time. And this, again, is something that will evolve and come back to the board based off our experiences and feedback at the end of the summer. So we do have here, it's hard to see the distinction on here, and I'll have to get better about picking out colors, but the top section is highlighted in green. Those are the sections, remind me, looking to Lindsay, these are the sections that are being provided in the online version, and then the 2 highlighted yellow sections below, like Flex PE, is what we would offer in a blended learning option. Is that correct?
Yep, that's correct.
So these are the classes I've already shared previously on another slide. External online course offerings. So board policy 6310 does allow for high school credit for non-district experiences. There are specific criteria in there. More importantly, they have to get prior approval. And so if a student wanted to pursue an external credit option, and so let me give you an example. If a student wanted to pursue a foreign language course, you can see that on number 5. And let's assume it's a foreign language that the school district cannot properly support at this time, Mandarin Chinese. We do not offer that course. If a student were interested in pursuing that, they could do so through ECC or other accredited and approved. It is important that we use that term accredited because that means that the curriculum has been reviewed and found satisfactory, correlates to state standards. That student could take those courses and submit them here. Our primary responsibility and obligation as a district is to work with ECC. Students may not go outside of that unless ECC cannot support that plan. But again, those are the logistical issues that we will address with individual students as they may seek to pursue an interest or another area of study.
If ECC does not have an offering, could one of our students go to an accredited surrounding district to get a similar subject that we might not offer?
Yeah, in a limited case where that might be an offering, in all likelihood, it would be offered through a different college or university.
Okay.
External online courses, as I shared before, we do have a criterion that we've outlined. They must seek approval through the superintendent and or my designee. My designee in this regard would default to Ms. Jonas. We currently have that process in place now as students apply for early graduation, so we're replicating the same thing. It is really important, as we said. The onus is on the student and their family, though. So when you're taking a class outside of the school district, and we have students that transfer in now who homeschool or take online schooling, they must provide all of the appropriate documentation to justify that the course is deserving of a high school credit. And so again, we outline all of those expectations there for our students and their families, and this would be part of an application process that students would complete anytime that prior to pursuing an online course outside of the school district. And I think, Mr. Fiorentino, that goes to your point. If there's something that we cannot offer or ECC cannot offer, they would have to pursue this option. And that concludes the summer school recommendations. Any questions or concerns?
Any questions or comments as I'm looking at board members? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. So in keeping with our calendar, we're doing additional data review this evening. This is going to be a very fast review this evening, IAR and iReady data. Again, the board has received this. What's most important about these slides is you compare fall to spring. Fall is when students return to school. Spring is just before the end of the school year. And just simply looking at this, because some of the numbers you cannot see outside of what was sent to you in your board packet, you can see that the spring, the percentage of students who are showing that they're meeting grade level standards and or those who are 2 years or 1 or 2 years below grade level continues to shrink from fall to spring each year across all grade levels. We see a little bit of a concern in 7th and 8th grade, but by and large that could be an implementation issue that we continue to address moving forward. And this is in mathematics. You can see here again from fall to spring, kindergarten improved from 7% being on track or on target for being proficient to 69%. Again, you can see the significant increases across all grade levels, but we start to see kind of a static growth. It's not the right way to say that, but we don't see commensurate growth in grades 7 and 8 as we do in grades K through 6. It is important to note that iReady has redefined how they define growth. In the past, we have always focused on students making at least a year and a half worth of growth, especially for those who are below grade level. That is very important because our interest is not in sustaining, as you've heard me say repeatedly, our interest is not in sustaining or maintaining an achievement gap. It's about closing the achievement gap. And here we look, and iReady has shifted, so they establish 2 goals for students. They establish a typical growth, which is what should we expect to see a student accomplish within a requisite school year, and then a stretch growth. The stretch growth targets are specific to ensuring that over multiple years, a student will close the achievement gap and attain a commensurate level of proficiency. The farther a student's behind, it is important to note that their target actually does adjust. And it's more aggressive. The further behind they are, the more aggressive their learning targets for both their short-term and their long-term growth targets change. Based on our student growth, some really good summaries here in mathematics. All of the elementary grades demonstrated greater than typical growth regardless of their fall diagnostic placement. Students who were 3 or more years below grade level at the start of the year exceeded their growth target by over 32% on average. The highest growth area was first grade students who started the year 2 grades below, exceeded their growth by a total of 56 percentage points. Greatest areas of opportunity for increasing growth continues to be in middle school, and you saw that in the commensurate data here. When we look at grades 7 and 8 in particular, we start to see, again, some stagnation in that growth. Part of that could be the assessment, part of it could be the alignment. We continue to explore that. Part of it, admittedly, could be the implementation. In particular, students who are 2 grade levels below in the fall appear to have grown at least with an average of 80.7% of their typical growth target being met. We're very proud of that because we still have one subsequent assessment left to take at the end of the year. And the highest level was the group who were 3 or more levels below grade level in the fall, with an average of 95.7% of their goal targets being met for the year. iReady reading performance, we see commensurate performance here with a reduction in students being, or with an increase in students attaining proficiency and reducing the percentage of students across the board who are off target by 2 or more years. Same thing here, kindergarten 5 to 61, 9 to 51 in grades 1, 16% to 43%. Again, you see commensurate growth. We start to again see stagnation as we get to middle grades. Again, we believe that in part, because this is in part due to the change in how they measure growth, but we also believe that in part it's either related to curriculum and the pacing. So we are working with iReady to help identify any deficiencies that we currently have. Based off our reading performance, all elementary grade levels demonstrated greater than typical growth, regardless of their fall diagnostic placement again. Students who were 3 or more years below at the start of the school year exceeded their growth by 42%. 5th grade is recognized for their high level of growth. Almost all levels saw 150% of their growth goals. Middle school saw the greatest overall growth with 6th grade students who were on or above grade level in fall, growing 225% of their typical growth goal. And an area of opportunity in middle school is 8th grade for students who were on or above grade level in the fall, but they did not have any growth in the spring as measured by iReady. So we have to do a little bit of a data dive there. We have DataCom coming up in January, so we'll be able to start to really talk about this. There's also the comparative analysis as far as cohort performance over time that has yet to be concluded at this time. Any questions about iReady? Okay. IAR, so this is the new statewide assessment. You see here, we do break out our data. We spend a lot of time disaggregating data. Averages among students are great. They can make us feel good, especially when it comes to improvement, but we have to make sure that all of our subgroups are performing adequately. And so here we do an analysis of how our student demographic groups by grade level. It is unfortunate at this time that cohort performance has not been tracked here. So this is third graders in 2016-17, third graders in 17-18, third graders in 18-19. We do see some improvements, especially from 17-18 to 18-19, with the implementation of some new instructional strategies. But the problem we continue to face is we need to measure cohort performance over time to ensure that we're increasing the number of students who are proficient and or closing the achievement gap for all of the demographic subgroups. It does not make sense to continue to compare third grade to third grade to third grade to third grade because it's largely irrelevant. It is very much, because that's determined by a lot of different factors, how a grade level performance. I think there's a lot of educators in the room that would argue that there's always been a conversation amongst staff. I did it when I was a teacher. Wow, this year's kids are further ahead than last year's kids were at the same time, and those things happen. And sometimes they're further behind than students were. So based off their prerequisite attainment, it can influence grade level performance data, but cohort performance is far more important. The ELA summary for IAR, the greatest percentage of students each year who meet or exceed expectations on IAR was 7th grade. Based on our analysis, the largest change from 16-17 to 18-19 was 6th grade, showing an 8% improvement over 3 years. All other grade levels appear to be relatively flat in their growth when looking for a specific grade level over year. Students with IDEA services had the greatest increase in 5th grade, 7%. Students identified as EL saw a 10% gain in grade level 4. I'm very happy to see and share that last bullet point with you, because if you recall our last data presentation, we focused on graduation rate, and our EL students and our students with IDEA, either a 504 or an IEP, all showed the greatest improvement in their graduation rates, averaging 14 percentage points over the last few years. So very happy to see that that's not only happening at the high school, but we're seeing that here at the elementary grades as well. Here's our math performance data. Same thing, grade level performance over time. We see some areas where we see growth. We see some areas where we're stagnant. Grade 7, again, showed great growth here in mathematics. Grade 8 showed some stagnation there. Grade 6, we have, obviously we have to do a deeper dive. And again, we're comparing 6th graders to 6th graders to 6th graders instead of looking at their trajectory cohort performance over time. The board will receive, and I will do a presentation on that analysis in the future. The math summary in grades 3, 4, and 7 saw the greatest growth in mathematics when examining grade level performance year over year. The rest of the grade levels remained relatively flat. Worth noting is the growth in elementary schools for students identified as EL. They had a growth between 7% and 14%, were some of the largest gains, again, in the area of mathematics. So very proud of that work that Mr. Perdomo and his staff and the teachers in our buildings are focusing on these students and increasing the rigor and accountability for them to make sure that they're attaining on grade level standards when assessed. So how do we compare when we compare it to the state? Only demographic groups of 20 students or more were included in a data set. Grade 3 students are not included in a data set since they need 2 years of testing to demonstrate growth. And again, this is not proficiency. This is a growth measure, which is a large component, as you know, of the school calculations. Overall, District 300 was above the 50th percentile in 76% of all areas measured for growth. You will have a new goal when the new strategic plan is finalized, and that will be under Goal 5, Student Achievement and Growth. So yes, thank you. That was a good segue, actually. Any questions? It's dry data. I'm sorry. I know that, and this is the reason why I chunk it instead of trying to do 1 3-hour presentation on district data. And the last topic before the board this evening, seeing no questions, is a charter school renewal. There's an established timeline, as you know, for the submission and renewal of Cambridge Lakes Charter School Agreement. I always say Cambridge Lakes Charter School, but it's also NKEC as their management. I'm looking to the audience to make sure I got that accurate. Completed portions of the requirement for review and recommendation to date. They submit all relevant documents for review. As you know, you received a full summary of all those documents as well as copies of all those documents over the last few months. And then the district advertises for a public hearing. We did that last month. Remaining steps, is a recommendation regarding a renewal or termination of the charter contract to the Board of Education. Not to make anybody nervous in the room, but it's always renewal and or termination. You have to use both terms. So the process for review, as you know, through the last renewal and discussion about renewal, we really focused heavily on developing a sustainable accountability plan that eliminated emotion, eliminated ambiguity, eliminated a lot of speculation, and focused really on some primary areas. We tailored, and again, as you know, we drew that accountability plan from what the state currently uses. This is what the state uses to reauthorize and review their charter schools, previously under the Charter School Commission before it was dissolved. This is also the document that is still utilized across the state in many areas. So it focuses on the physical audit, to making sure that they're fiscally responsible. It's programmatic audits, EL services, IEP 504 services, and health records. It's the accountability plan. Again, as I shared, it mirrors the state accountability plan, really focuses heavily on academic performance, finances, and compliance with state and or federal mandates in particular. And then we always have a review of the contract language, inclusive of any modifications. I would say, I know that Ms. Pauletta is here with us in the audience. She's welcome to join us at the podium if she sees fit. But I would give you an example that when we were recently reviewing the contract, there was a portion of the contract that was no one's fault. It wasn't the correct language, and so we were able to revise that. So there's always a review of the contract language, as we do anytime we negotiate, even with our collective bargaining agreements. There's contract review. Ms. O'Keefe and Mr. Mora and Mr. Williamson can attest to the number of days and hours that they're committing to ensuring that that contract is fully reviewed and vetted. So that brings us to a final recommendation. So my recommendation to the Board of Education is that the charter school renewal be authorized for a period of 3 years. However, with the asterisk for 2 additional years, so long as certain criteria are met. So in essence, if the board authorizes this tonight, if the charter school is amicable and signs a letter of agreement that they will work to address these issues by a date specific, they would receive a 5-year renewal. That would benefit them, it benefits us, so we're not back at this again in 2 years. But it also allows the board, for me, to address some concerns and questions that the board has raised moving forward. These have been shared recently in a conversation with Ms. Pauletta and Ms. Mahaffey. So the renewal again would be extended for 2 additional years so long as the following criteria are met. That the school leadership team include a chief academic officer or similar position that is filled with someone who has the knowledge and expertise of education policy, instructional practice, curriculum alignment, and coaching. It includes they include or provide an annual report of all staff, including titles, salaries, and benefits. They did recently submit that. As you know, I forwarded that immediately to the board. Upon their request, Ms. Pauletta was very amicable to that, and they adopt a progressive disciplinary policy that ensures alignment with Senate Bill 100. We already had a conversation about that. They're already working aggressively towards that goal themselves. So again, if approved, the school would again submit all required documents in the fall of 2022 to give us an appropriate timeline to review it and then consider renewal again moving forward. That's if the 3-year is approved. If everything is met, the 5-year would take us out to 2024, if I recall correctly, 25. So that, again, provides greater stability for both parties. That is the recommendation that I'm making to the board this evening.
If I'm out of order, please say so. But the question I have of Ms. Pauletta is, there's no time certain here for the chief academic officer position. Are you willing to verbally commit that that'll be by the beginning of next year? And that would not be the two type 75 people that you referred to when we spoke before?
Yeah, Mr. Stevens, at this time, I respectfully have to ask you to withdraw your question. Ms. Paletta and I can address this outside of this meeting, or Ms. Paletta, if you'd like to address that
But you want to
following
vote
the
tonight.
meeting. I do, but again, the additional 2 years would be so long as these criterion and conditions are met within a specified period of time. The concern is the appearance of negotiating outside of the proper process.
I can share with you without going through a negotiation and stepping that we had a meeting today in regards to a CEO or an academic leader. We did quite a bit in closed session because, there's talk about employees and things like that. I can't commit for you right this minute since I would need the board's approval. And as Superintendent Hyde said, it would look like negotiations here at the table. But we are committed to bringing in an additional academic person. Absolutely.
Thank you, Sylvia.
So for clarification, the way I see this proposal is there would be a renewal for a 3-year period of time. There could be an additional 2 years added to that would extend it out for 5 years. Those additional 2 years have these 3 conditions that are put on here. And to Mr. Stevens' point, it doesn't say when these these conditions have to be met, but they need to be met well or before those additional 2 years happen. Otherwise, they're going to be back here in the fall of 2022 asking for another renewal at that time. So it seems to me that as I'm looking at this, if the charter school wants to have a 5-year renewal and have it confirmed as a 5-year renewal, it would be to their benefit to meet these 3 criteria sooner than later. That if they don't want a 5-year renewal, they get a 3-year renewal, they come back in 2022. Without meeting those, if they meet those criteria, they could get an extra 2. Am I interpreting this correctly?
All the way up until the end, I think you said they would get 2 year. They will get a 5-year contract. If tomorrow we will draft a letter of agreement with the charter school, if they're in agreement and we can establish timelines for each of these, I think the expectation would be prior to the start of a next school year. But again, that's a conversation that needs to include Ms. O'Keefe and council.
Okay. So what you're looking for from us tonight would be the ability to renew for 3 years with the possibility of the additional 2 years if during the balance of your negotiations you get that commitment.
These conditions that the board has expressed to me can be satisfied, yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay. Thank you.
My concern is you're asking me to vote without knowing what the answer to the first bullet is. I heard what she said, and I also understand the limitations, but I have difficulty with that.
I understand. The only thing I would offer is I think both parties have shown good faith in working through the issues of the past and concerns that we've had. And the assurance that we would aggressively work to address this prior to the start of the upcoming school year. That's my commitment, but I completely understand.
I will be supportive if you're telling me that that's what you're going to go for, and you understand that's what I would like to see. And this is totally out of order. This is just a personal comment. I would also like to see the penalty clauses in the teachers' contracts disappear.
Oh, okay.
I don't think those are appropriate. That's just, I said.
Right. That's you're not negotiating. That's just your personal, individual board member opinion.
What I said.
Okay. I just want to make sure that the direction that is given when we vote is the board direction to whichever way it goes, and isn't based on any individual board member saying this is what I want.
Yes, ma'am.
Just want to be sure.
I was very clear.
These are the
Yes, I'm
this
just
captures the
confirming.
collective concerns that the board has expressed to me.
Are there any other questions or comments? Anything?
May I share that from our perspective, it's in our best interest to work with you to meet these goals. A 3-year charter would be a step backwards in the whole process and our history together. And in the fact that we've moved through a corrective action process that had a 4-year charter, we've met those steps. We have, our financial people, our bonds holders, they would see it as a step back if suddenly we don't have a 5-year charter. We're working on that gym building, so going to the bank for a loan, that's going to question, why we have a 3-year versus the historical 5-year. We have our families, our staff to think about too. So we are open to these items and are looking forward to further discussion.
Okay, so that tells me that these are not onerous items. These are in both sides' mutual interest to have these, and we may very well end up with a 5-year contract that everyone is very happy with.
And I would argue that neither Ms. Paletta nor myself would take a position that these are new topics. This is something we did discuss.
Okay. All right, anything else?
No, ma'am.
All right.
Thank you, Ms. Paletta. And that concludes the superintendent's report for this evening.
Thank you. Do we have any legislative updates?
One, so our team spent a considerable amount of time revisiting and revising and reviewing our seclusion and restraint requirements with the understanding that we went from actually having a very thorough and thoughtful process in any of our restraining techniques are done through CPI training. None of them allow a student to be restrained in a prone manner that would impede their ability to have movement and or to breathe. So we found that we went from a solid process to an incredibly restrictive one, at which point the legislature and ISB have since retreated, and they have revised their policy to be far more flexible and to exclude certain things like in-school suspension and whatnot, where a student might be in a room with another adult because they cannot go back to their classroom or they're being held in there instead of going through classes throughout a traditional day. That is a practice we've had. The problem is the language previously that they had shared with us became so restrictive that we were going to struggle to even meet that need. ISB has since, retreating is not the right word, they have listened and they have revised their policy. I shared that with Ms. O'Keefe today as well as Ms. Nackey, and they are already aggressively working to review and provide revisions to the document, the very thorough document that I sent to you last week. And so I will provide you with additional updates, and that also will be shared with our building administrators and staff because it's very important. We will still require the training for all of our principals, assistant principals, and deans for the appropriate use of CPI restraints and or strategies. I think that that is important, and that requires a 2-year renewals process as well. But since they are most likely to be the ones responding or assisting, it is important that they all be trained. That's the only legislative update I have at this time.
Okay, thank you. We're moving on to public participation. We had 3 people that had signed up. I'm going to ask you to come up to the podium when I call your name. And this is Mr. Angel Cuerva. Okay. Please state your name. You must be 18 years or older. Okay. Give your full name and state your comments. Please limit your comments to 5 minutes. It isn't generally a time for us to dialogue, but it's a time for us to listen to what your concerns are.
Yeah. Thank you. My name is Angel Cueva, and I have 2 kids at Cambridge Lake Charter School. I want to just share what happened with my kid during the last school year. My youngest son was bullied by one of his classmates. As a result of that, he didn't want to go to school. He started talking about movies like...
I'm going to just interrupt you, and I'm going to restart your time. Sure. I just want to make sure that you understand not to mention names of anyone, no teachers, no other students, anyone that is not
Yes, I read
yours.
that.
I just want to make
Thank
sure.
you so much.
Okay, and not
thank
to
you
stop your train of thought, but you can start over.
Thank you so much. No, I will continue. As a result of this, he didn't want to go to school, start talking about movies like It, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Walking Dead, and others. Movies that, as parents, we do not allow them to watch. As a consequence of this bullying, he started wetting his bed many times, waking up in the middle of the night crying because he thought one or both parents or his brother would die. Also, he was losing his temper very easily. He was reluctant to talk about what was happening at school. The high point was when he told his brother that he was going to kill him. He is now 8 years old, my youngest son. This never happened before since he had never expressed others something like that. We contacted classroom teacher and principal since our son was, before that, was a happy kid and very kind with his brother. We found out that another student was intimidated others, but especially my son. He threatened my son to hurt him, kill him, chop his head, and give him ideas to hurt. Several times we communicate with the principal and the classroom teacher to let them know about the problem. By the middle of the last school year, the principal let us know that the convenient solution will be to change my son to another classroom, but not the student who started all this. My wife and I had a meeting with her, but she could not give any reason why not to change the other student instead of my son. Also, other parents called us regarding if we knew about what this student was doing to my son. My wife and my son and I, we talked about the possibility to change him to other classes. He started asking why he needed to leave his class and he did not do anything. He cried because he had his friends there. We convinced him and we just let him know that will be the better solution of it. He accepted and he said, at least I'm going to be safe. Also, the principal told us that my son will receive support from social workers, something that never happened the last year. Even though he was moved to another classroom, the other student kept looking for him and threatening him and others. He told my son that he will chop his head. My son's reaction was to make a little paper ball and rubber it on his nose bridge until he started bleeding. I let her know that I will contact the police station, the principal, regarding this. She said that my son will receive social worker support for the rest of the school year. Again, never happened. During our vacation, we went to Peru because we are from Peru. We spent there so we can change the environment. My son received some medical tests, and when the doctors see the scar that he had on his nose, he asked the reason. After we explained to her what was it, she told us she recommended his dad to check psychological tests for him. My son and my wife and I spend the whole vacation with psychological therapists twice or 3 times a week there. The results of those tests were that he suffered now from anxiety, depression, low self-esteem, and feeling of guilty. As soon as we returned to USA, we had a meeting with the principal and let her know all about it. Her answer was to apologize and let us know that the good news was that the kid who generated all this situation was not in school anymore. But the damage was already there. Since the psychological results were in Spanish, she made a copy and she told us that she could ask somebody from the school to translate it in order for my son to receive support. A month later, after we requested a meeting, we're told that the school could not translate it. We need to hire someone to do it since the district does not provide a translator. This upset us a lot because my wife and I had let her know that my son needed to receive psychological support because of the result from those tests that only were in Spanish, but were administered by a professional. I'm here to just let you know that there's no plan there to treat people that are bullied. And this is like a snowball. For those kids that were bullying, they probably are going to start causing the same to others. And we explained that too. So, just to let you know my story about that. Thank you for letting me.
Thank you, Mr. Cuerva. You chose an interesting evening to come and speak to us, and fortuitous in some way. You mentioned your child is at Chamber Lakes Charter School, Cambridge Lakes, sorry. And while that school is located within District 300, it is not really technically a District 300 school. However, you had the opportunity tonight, as you saw right before you spoke, Ms. Paletta, who is in charge of that school, has just now heard your comments, and you may want to follow up directly with her at the school. after this evening to see what. Yes, and we listened and we did hear, and I think that if you follow up with Mrs. Paletta, you may have an avenue to address your concerns. Thank you. I now have Kristen Brunstein.
Right, Kristen Brunstein. I have 4 children within the district at various schools. I'm also the chair of the finance committee for the Northern Kane Educational Corp.
And you heard my spiel about you have to be 18 and over,
Absolutely.
don't mention any names and all of that.
Yes,
Okay,
and
thank you.
Ms. Paletta really covered the commentary that I had to present. The only item I would reiterate would be the financial perspective of the 5-year contract versus the 3-year contract, in the sense that our bondholders would find the 5-year, even the 7-year contract more favorable compared to a 3-year going step backwards type of environment. Also, the local banks and things like that would, of course, also look more favorable at a 5-year, even a 7-year contract, if that's a possibility.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Matthew Keefe. Keefe, thank you. And you heard, please come to the podium, state your name, have to be over 18, don't know teachers' names, no other students' names but yours.
Right.
Please limit your comments to 5 minutes. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Matt Keefe, and I have a daughter that is currently attending Westfield in preschool, and then I also have a 2-year-old son that will be ready for preschool within the year 2020. I was told of a possibility of preschool moving from Westfield to DeLacy, and when my wife and I found out about this, we were concerned, mainly because of logistical issues. I feel like it may limit the accessibility of preschool education to move preschool from Westfield to DeLacy. The driving distance from our house to Carpentersville is much greater. If our son were to go to DeLacy, a 3-year-old might, if there was a bus service or anything like that, we might not want to put him on a bus for that. And it's, we've grown accustomed to the convenience of having preschool at Westfield, and with my daughter moving on, that was our plan, but with the move, it's just a concern. Also, we just I think the reason for the move, I don't know, I don't have the full details about it, or the reason for the potential move is possible overcrowding of Westfield, and I think it's just for handling a new subdivision of kids, but I don't know that taking one preschool classroom will solve that issue. It also may be a barrier if moving preschool for others to attend or have the possibility of attending preschool in a close school for them. That's all, really.
Thank you. And I'm not going to minimize your comments, but I do want to say these are comments that are not unique just to you and your family. We do have processes that we follow when we consider where we move students and what boundaries we do. And Dr. Scarpino is part of our boundary committee. Mr. Hyde and his team have been working on what to do in regarding our students. And I think if you keep on our website, I think, is that where most of the information regarding the boundaries and the changes are?
As recommendations are made, as you know, Ms. Harkin and Mr. Emerson continue to present, and it's a topic that remains in front of the board as far as our classroom space and utilization reports. Westfield has been addressed, and we've had a conversation. Programmatic changes, which is the reference here, which would we relocate preschool elsewhere, is absolutely one of several possibilities, and we have articulated those. So an addition at the school is possible. Rezoning the school is possible. There are any number of factors that we would explore, and in the boundary committee, as required by school board policy, we'll develop 3 to 5, I believe it's 5 recommendations, and we will actually then do public forums if that became the issue for us as far as space utilization and access for students. And then based off stakeholder feedback, as you know, we bring that back to the Board of Education. We give you all of that feedback as we did with the Hampshire Middle School and DMS rezoning that occurred for this school year, and then the board makes a determination which model or which process we will embrace moving forward. But again, just for your comfort, programmatic relocation is just one of multiple factors that are considered, and at this time, no decision has been made. Ms. Harkin, I'm looking at you. The committee, Jason, nobody's made a final recommendation because we continue to explore. And I know the development that's proposed in that community has raised a lot of concern, but what we have responded to, and Mr. Emerson has been at all of those meetings and heard much of the public comment, I think what oftentimes gets lost is that, yes, the development may bring students into a school district, but they're going to span grades pre-K all the way through 12th grade. And so the impact is not just narrowly assessed or impacting one particular building, as well as the fact that even though we may be utilizing much of the classroom space, all of our classrooms are not at full capacity. So there are spaces in grade levels. So we would maximize and optimize those things first prior to making other decisions. So I just want to, the board will not typically respond. I'm typically at liberty to respond until I get chastised or scolded for doing so. But I want to address some of your concerns and provide you some comfort knowing that no decision has been made. We will absolutely be transparent and communicate with you in the very near future about any possibility about programmatic movements and or other options we're exploring.
Thank you, and thank you for the details on the process as well. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay, that concluded public participation. And so moving on our agenda. First, I need item 13, motion to approve consent items.
So moved.
Second.
And Dr. Scarpino.
Stevens.
Aye.
Fiorentino.
Aye.
Lamarca.
Aye.
McNicholas.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Scarpino. Aye. Zettler.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, item 14.1. I need approval of the K5/6-8 math curriculum adoption.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, Dr. Scarpino.
Zettler.
Aye.
Stevens.
Aye.
Scarpino. Aye. Miller.
Aye.
McNicholas.
Aye.
Lamarca.
Aye.
Fiorentino.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, item 14.1, approval of paraprofessional services contract.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, Dr. Scarpino.
McNicholas.
Aye.
Fiorentino.
Aye.
Lamarca.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Scarpino. Aye. Stevens.
Aye.
Zettler.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Item 14.3, approval of on-site professional development contract.
So moved.
Second, any discussion? Please call the roll.
Stevens. Miller.
Aye.
Scarpino. Aye. Zettler.
Aye.
McNicholas.
Aye.
Lamarca.
Aye.
Fiorentino.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, item number 14.4, approval of property and casualty and workers' compensation insurance renewal. Motion to.
Move.
Second, any discussion? Please call the roll.
Stevens.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Zettler.
Aye.
Scarpino. Aye. McNicholas.
Aye.
Lamarca.
Aye.
Fiorentino.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Item 14.5, approval of partial tax abatement resolution.
So moved.
Second.
That was
Any discussion?
Wait a minute. Who seconded it?
Nancy?
Nancy
And
did?
me.
Nancy, then you. Zettler.
Aye.
Stevens.
Aye.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. He meant it.
Okay. Scarpino, aye. Miller.
Aye.
McNicholas.
Aye.
Lamarca.
Aye.
Fiorentino. Motion passes 7-0.
Item 14.6, approval of the property tax relief state grant application.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Stevens.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Scarpino, aye. Zettler.
Aye.
McNicholas.
Aye.
Fiorentino.
Aye.
Lamarca.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Item 14.7, approval of student support services contract.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Please call the roll.
McNicholas.
Aye.
Fiorentino.
Aye.
Lamarca.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Scarpino, aye. Zettler.
Aye.
Stevens.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
14.8, approval of e-learning option 2020-21, 21-22, 22-23.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Okay, please call the roll.
Fiorentino.
Aye.
Zettler.
Aye.
Stevens.
Aye.
Scarpino, aye. Miller.
Aye.
McNicholas. Lamarca.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, this is item 14.9. I have to read this one. Whereas the state of Illinois enacted Article 27A of the of the School Code of Illinois, otherwise known as the Charter Schools Law. And whereas on May 23, 2005, Northern Kane submitted its first application for approval and recognition as a charter school for a term commencing for the 2006-07 school year and ending at the end of 2011-2012 school year, which was approved and certified by the Illinois State Board of Education, known as ISBE. Whereas on September 14, 2009, the board approved a resolution renewing this agreement and extending the term of the charter school until August 31, 2014. And whereas on May 29, 2012, the board approved a resolution renewing the agreement and extending the term of the charter school until August 31, 2017. And whereas on August 26, 2016, the board approved a resolution renewing the agreement and extending the term of the charter school to until August 31st, 2020. And whereas the parties desire that the charter school be authorized to continue to operate and conduct its affairs in accordance with the terms of this updated agreement. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Board of Education, pursuant to Section 27A-9 of the Charter Schools Law, approves renewing the agreement and extending the term of the charter school until August 31st, 2023. Hang on. All right, I'm going to repeat that last part. Whereas now be it resolved, Board of Education pursuant to Section 27A-9 of the Charter Schools Law approves renewing the agreement and extending the term of the charter school until August 31st, 2023, with an option of an extension of 2 years to 2025 if certain conditions have been met. Yes, Mr. Stevens.
You don't mean have been met. You meant will be met based upon whatever.
Will be met. Correct.
Okay.
Motion to approve.
I motion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
You want to second it? Well, you want a second?
Yeah, sure. Second.
Okay.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Yes, Ms. Nicholas.
I am enthusiastic about the mutual, strong motivation to ensure quality academics throughout the charter school, and I hope that our conditions can turn this into a 5-year contract, because I think that would ensure the best academic outcomes for all students within our district.
Mr. Hyde, I want to make sure that you heard what I did.
I did.
Okay, any other discussion?
Did you do something that you slipped in there that we missed?
No.
She
No.
didn't.
Okay, so then I will have Dr. Scarpino call the roll.
Scarpino, aye. Lamarca?
Aye.
Fiorentino?
Aye.
McNicholas?
Aye.
Miller?
Aye.
Stevens?
Having faith in my superintendent, I'll vote aye.
Zettler?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, I just got to write that down on there, okay.
Yeah, no pressure there.
All right.
The last 2 words in, didn't he?
All right, item number 1410. Hang on a second. Okay, item 1410, this is employee discipline case number 4. Resolution of the Board of Education of Community Unit School District 300 authorizing suspension. Whereas the Board of Education of Community Unit School District 300 has received a recommendation from the administration regarding the performance and conduct of Lori Getz, a DESPA DESPA union group employee previously discussed in closed session. And whereas the this Board of Education herewith finds and determines that evidence shows that Ms. Getz failed to follow directions and failed to comply with district timekeeping procedures. Whereas the Board of Education finds that the suspension of Ms. Getz is in the best interest of the district. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Education of Community Unit School District 300. 1. Ms. Getz is hereby suspended without pay for 1 day to take place on December 11th, 2019. So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, Dr. Scarpino, please call the roll.
Miller?
Aye.
McNicholas?
Aye.
Lamarca?
Aye.
Fiorentino?
Aye.
Scarpino, aye. Stevens?
Aye.
Zettler?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
This is item 1411. This is employee discipline number 5, resolution of the Board of Education of Community Unit School District 300 authorizing suspension. Whereas the Board of Education of Community Unit School District 300 has received a recommendation from the administration regarding the performance and conduct of Michael McAlvey, a DESPA DESPA union group employee previously discussed in closed session, and whereas this Board of Education herewith finds and determines that evidence shows that Mr. McAlvey failed to comply with administrator directives, failed to adequately perform his job duties, failed to follow work hours as assigned, failed to appropriately respond to a student altercation, and demonstrated a disregard for the safety of staff and students. Whereas the Board of Education finds that the suspension of Mr. McAlvey is in the best interest of the district. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Education of Community Unit School District 300. 1. Mr. McAlvey is hereby suspended without pay for 1 day to take place on December 11th, 2019.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? Okay, Dr. Scarpino, please call the roll.
McNicholas?
Aye.
Miller?
Aye.
Scarpino, aye. Stevens?
Aye.
Zettler?
Aye.
Fiorentino?
Aye.
Lamarca?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. Item number 15, we have board discussion items. Item 15.1 are committee reports. We had draft minutes. The next meetings are scheduled for the new year, Tuesday, January 14th, 4:30 and 5:15 p.m. How does that new time work for everybody? Did it work okay?
Good.
Okay. Were there any other updates from any of the committees?
No.
Okay. And any other updates or comments or discussion from board members? Okay. I wish everybody Okay, so I wish staff and the community and every board members happy holiday season, whatever it is that you celebrate or not celebrate. Enjoy the time. And we will
Celebrate or not celebrate.
and we'll see you at our next meeting on January 14th of 2020. I need a motion to, Mary?
I was just going to
Make a motion to adjourn?
You got it, Mary.
So moved.
You got
Second?
it, Mary.
All in favor?
Aye. Time is 8:24.
I'm sorry, I need 2 more documents I
What?
need you to sign.
Oh, okay.
You got this folder too?
Yes, I did. Just 2 pages, right? Oh, this goes to, whoops, I don't want to bump into it.